I am delighted today to be joined by Kirsty Williams, Minister for Education in Wales, and John Pugsley, Head of Expressive Arts, Humanities and STEM Branch Curriculum and Assessment Division. Good morning to you both. Thank you so much for joining me today. In 2006, Ken Robinson delivered a TED Talk called Do Schools Kill Creativity? The talk is still the most viewed TED Talk of all time and struck a chord with many. So Ken Robinson believed passionately that we do not grow into creativity, that we grow out of it, or rather we get educated out of it. Do you believe this was the case? And if so, how does the new curriculum for Wales address this area?
I was very fortunate to meet Ken Robinson as part of the Welsh Government's involvement in the Atlantic Rim Collaboratory, which is a group of progressive education systems that look to cooperate across the world. And of course, it's a great shame that we lost Ken last year very suddenly. And I have a lot of sympathy for what Ken Robinson had to say about how, in many ways, the education system is currently structured really drives out creativity. And I think it drives out creativity for children, but I also think it drives out creativity for practitioners also. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so delighted that we have moved forward with curriculum reform here in Wales, where creativity, whilst explicitly mentioned in the expressive arts area of learning, is actually one of the 4 key skills that we think is essential in nurturing and developing and encouraging if we're to reach the purposes of our new curriculum.
An American children's TV presenter once said the following: "There would be no art and there would be no science if human beings had no desire to create. And if we had everything we ever need or ever wanted, we would have no reason for changing anything. So at the root of all art and all science, there exists a gap between what the world is like and what the human creator wishes and hopes for it to be like. Our unique way of bridging the gap in each of our lives seems to me to be the essence of the reason for human creativity." I think the COVID-19 vaccine is a good example of this. We needed something, so we created it. Do you believe we could see a time where creativity and innovation are given the same hierarchical importance within the curriculum as literacy, maths, and science, and even possibly taught as its own subject?
We can imagine that time, because I think that's what we're moving to in Wales with our new curriculum and assessment bill, which I very hope before the end of April will become an act. We're very, very clear that if we are to prepare our children for the futures that they will face in a globally interconnected world, facing some real challenges. I mean, obviously, we've lived through a massive challenge during the COVID pandemic, but that doesn't mean that we don't have the issues of the climate emergency to tackle, growing inequality within our own nation, let alone across the world. So there are still big challenges that face us, that will face individuals in their own personal lives, in their own working lives, as well as being a citizen of our nation and of the globe. And therefore, as I said, we've identified in our new curriculum that creativity and innovation is a critical skill that we need to nurture in our young people. And you can't, I don't believe we need to do that as a single subject, but actually in each of the areas of learning and experience to ensure that we're giving children the opportunity to engage in that deep thinking within those subjects, and how they can use subject knowledge as well as that skill of creativity and innovation to move forward in their own learning and to get ready for a really complex life that being a human being is.
What makes a great teacher?
Oh my goodness me, what makes a great teacher? Well, you should just ask children. Because children will sniff out something that is inauthentic. And sometimes people think that children will just rate a good teacher as someone who's perhaps, it goes easy on them, doesn't create a lot of work. But a really great teacher is a teacher that sparks in them a love of learning, a sense of curiosity, a sense of confidence to engage. A great teacher establishes wonderful relationships based on trust. And somebody that sees something in a child that gives that child confidence to be able to express themselves. And I see that not just as a minister. I've seen that in the impact that good teaching has had on my life. I simply would not be the education minister if it wasn't for an inspirational history teacher that I had in my life. And I see it in the lives of my own children, who have sparked in my children an absolute thirst for learning and a desire to gobble up as much as they can knowledge. And I was having a conversation with my own daughter just this week, who says, what I love about Mr. I won't name him, embarrass him, is that he is learning all the time too, Mum, and he wants to keep on learning. And I think that's great, she said, because I'm learning alongside him. He's a relatively newly qualified teacher, and he's just so enthusiastic about learning. And that inspires her, because she sees someone who wants to continue to develop themselves. And that really encourages her to keep on with her learning.
Yeah, that's lovely. I think, the best of us will always keep learning. Never a finished product. Always striving better. Absolutely. And this is something I say to the profession all the time. The greatest learner, the biggest learner in the room should be you, because that in itself will inspire. And, and also I think professional learning is so important if we're to attract, the best and the brightest into the profession. We've done some work actually in Wales that has looked at comparing, why do people choose other professions as opposed to teaching? And one of the things, the feedback that we've got is that and other careers, people see progression and that commitment to continuous professional development. And that's what I want to recreate for teachers within our education system. So, we've reformed initial teacher education. We're looking at ensuring that we're reforming those crucial few first years of a teaching career so people get off to a great start, but also now introducing our new master's program and really giving the profession an opportunity to grow and develop. And also, of course, with our new curriculum, giving teachers greater sense of agency, over their careers and over the lessons that they deliver. And we know that the highest performing education systems in the world have great levels of teacher autonomy. But we need to support teachers, especially those that have qualified and have taught their entire lifetime under the auspices of the national curriculum. You do meet professionals who say, oh, well, we're just going back to how it was when I first qualified. But, making sure that teachers feel confident to engage in our new curriculum is really important. In 2019, Durham University released a report that said creativity can shape a holistic, lifelong approach to health and well-being. Creative activities can be shared and a means of self-realization. They can help with physical fitness and emotional resilience. There is very limited research in this particular area, but this is something that I'm incredibly passionate about personally. And I'm just wondering what your opinion was. If you see a potential link between being creative, being self-expressive, being confident, and ultimately mental health.
Well, I think it's certainly intuitively, I absolutely believe in that. If you think about, what we've all gone through for the last year, I'm sure that for many of us, creative pursuits, have actually, benefited us hugely in keeping as well as we can through these challenging times. And we do know with, again, a new emphasis on health and well-being in the curriculum, but also what our children and young people have gone through, rather than there's a narrative is beginning to develop that somehow we have to catch these children up and we have to throw more content at them. But actually what these children need is the opportunity to play with each other, once again, to talk about the experiences that they've been through. And of course, using a variety of creative endeavours is a really good way of allowing children that space to be able to talk or perform or to draw or to write, or to build an expression of what they've all been through during this pandemic. So I absolutely see the links between creative endeavour in its widest variety of forms and how that can certainly help develop good mental health and well-being, but also a mechanism by which, if we're struggling, whether we're young or old, an outlet of how we can express how we're feeling.
Thank you. There was a paper released called The Great Landscape of Affordances. And what's really interesting about this particular paper, that captured my imagination anyway, was when they tried to explain that we basically see and interpret the world as it is. So if we walked into, say, a hospital and there were beds and clinical apparatus, we know its purpose, we know its function. Yet if I gave you the same building and took everything away and left you with nothing, would you say that was a hospital? You probably wouldn't. It could be anything that our imagination allows it to be. And I'm really fascinated in this particular area. My question to you, first, a two-parter. So, first of all, why do we not see forest schools in secondary education? And what can be done to break down those walls? The Victorians made a fantastic classroom. They really, really did. But those walls, we're trying to break them down, I know, with the new curriculum. But what more can be done to allow children to be who they want to be?
That's a really interesting observation about how forest schools predominate in the primary sector as opposed to the secondary sector. And we have to think about how we've created a situation, especially in the secondary sector, around accountability and performance management that has really, really narrowed down how we view a successful school. And I think that has then inevitably led to a set of decisions and unintended consequences that have really, really led to a narrowing of the experiences that children have in a secondary school setting. So I think what's really important is that not only do we change our curriculum, where we are legally saying that a school is required to provide that broad, balanced curriculum across all the areas of learning and experience, right the way through to 16, regardless of whether a formal qualification is going to be, sat at the end of it, and that we want children to have that knowledge and the skills that they will need, but also the experiences of a broad and balanced curriculum. And of course, we also then need to change the way in which we hold schools accountable. Because if we continue to focus that a school, the only measure of success of a school is 5 GCSEs at A star to C, and nothing else constitutes success, we won't see the change in culture that the curriculum itself is there to bring about. So that's about changing accountability, and how we measure performance in schools. It's how ESTIN approaches its responsibilities with regards to schools, and having a much broader understanding of what a good education looks like. Now, qualifications are important, of course they are, because that's how that's how students are able to demonstrate to future employers or future universities what they're able to do. But my goodness me, hasn't COVID pandemic demonstrated to us that schools are much, much more in children's lives than simply an exam factory? And that's what we've got to capture as a result of curriculum reform and changes to how what we regard as excellence in education.
Thank you once again to Kirsty Williams, Minister for Education in Wales, and John Pugsley, Head of Expressive Arts, Humanities and STEM Branch, Curriculum and Assessment Division. I really appreciate your time and your insight, and have a really good day. Thank you.